Hey everyone, it's Kate with Maritime Ceramics. Welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing the most expensive glaze review I've ever done. I'm going to blame it all on Sarah over at Three Little Potters. She recently did a review of the Archie's base line of Coyote glazes. Sarah did a great review, you should definitely go watch it, of all of the different glazes in that sample pack. So when I found myself entirely accidentally in the Best Kind mud shop in Halifax, Nova Scotia with its fabulous selection of glazes, I thought I'd treat myself to a new glaze. And honestly, I wanted to buy more than one, but this glaze, and I'm going to show you so that you know I'm not lying. This glaze, this 1 pint bottle of Frosted Topaz, cost me $52.95. Plus tax. Yeah, so this had better be pretty freaking magical if it wants to make it into my regular rotation. However, we have to treat ourselves every once in a while, right? And I do enjoy the Coyote glazes because you can get some really magical results out of them. I've talked about this before when I did my Amethyst glaze review. Amethyst is also a fairly expensive glaze. It is not $50 a pint yet, but Amethyst is one of the staples in my studio. I really like the color. I do find it kind of magical. I'm a sucker for purple, and I have not seen anything anywhere else that compares to that glaze. So there are some things like celadons where you can find different manufacturers that make basically the same thing, and one might have a little more movement or a little less or whatever, but you know, you can find alternatives that are often quite close. Coyote have done a really good job of developing glazes that I haven't seen anywhere else. So here we are, $53 poorer, but hopefully rich with beautiful results. We'll see. Frosted Topaz is dinnerware safe, which is awesome. It means you can use it on pretty much anything. Lead-free, non-toxic, which is true for most glazes now. And it is a cone 5 to 6 glaze, which is perfect. I fire to a cone 6, although sometimes things get a little warmer. And the other fun thing about the Coyote glazes is that it actually says right on the bottle that you can dip or pour the glazes. I have found that pouring most of the glazes from all the manufacturers works out pretty well, but Coyote have actually stated that right on the bottle. Okay, so here's my dilemma. Given that this is a crazy expensive glaze, do I pour it on the inside where you're not going to see it? Or do I do something like snow inside and then just put it around the rim? I think that's what I'm going to do. Oh, look at that. Okay, so funny story here. I picked this pack of Post-it notes because I thought it was a little more subtle than the orange that I've been using. Might be a little more pleasing to the eye. But I guess this was just in the sun. And this is what it looks like. So neon green it is. Sorry, I apologize to your eyeballs. I have snow as a dipping glaze, and I've barely used it because it doesn't play well with others. When you brush on top of snow, the brushing glaze tends not to stick very well. So as I'm saying this, I'm second guessing myself, and maybe I don't want to pour snow inside. What else could I use on the inside? Let's try this again. On the inside, I'm going to pour. Is this a bad idea? Might be a bad idea. I hate to use the Frosted Topaz on the inside where nobody's going to see it, you know? Yeah, whatever. We'll just put it on the inside. Pour inside. Okay. So that is stoneware, I think. Yep. So I'm going to do this one, which is porcelain, Pottery Supply House 909. But there's a little bit of mason stain in this. This was Reclaim. And I didn't realize one of the stains that I have that I use for the Nariagi, it doesn't really show up when it's in the wet clay. And I've actually fired a few of these pieces. I was making spoon rests at the time, and they turn out with just the tiniest blue tint to them. You don't really notice it unless you know what you're looking for. But regardless, I think a slight blue tint with the Frosted Topaz could be quite pretty. And this will tell us how it does on porcelain. We'll brush 2 times on the outside. And that'll give us an idea of what it looks like with just the 2 coats as well. This cute little pinch pot that I made, I'm getting a little short on red textiles. So this is Pottery Supply House 500 clay. I think this one as well, we'll do straight up Frosted Topaz, and we'll see how it does on the Pottery Supply House 500. And I want to try pairing this with Amethyst for sure, because they're both Coyote glazes, so that could be quite pretty. I made this little bowl. Again, I think this is going to seem like the Three Little Potters stocking show. Anyway, after I watched Sarah's review on the Coyote Archie's glazes, a video popped up of her making little heart bowls, which is totally not something that I ever do, as I think you can tell by the bottom, which is not finished to a high standard. But it sounded super cute, and so I thought I would give it a try. The problem with me is that I'm not very good at throwing off the humps, so yeah, it's not great at the bottom, but super cute and a neat idea. So on this one, I think we will dip it in Amethyst, and then I will do a rim of the Frosted Topaz. This larger pinch pot is the New Ceramics clay. Andrew down at New Ceramics is working to make some Made in the Maritimes clay, which is super exciting. Anyway, I had some left over from my test batch, and this is what I did with it. It fires to a buff sort of a color. I think on this one, I'm going to leave the rim bare and maybe actually fire it upside down and then put Frosted Topaz on the outside. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try Power Turquoise with Frosted Topaz over top. Why not? All right. All right, are we taking bets on how hard panned this is? Yeah, we're not wasting that. Well, yep. It's not hard panned. It does need a lot of mixing. It is a very Coyote thing where their glazes need a lot of work before you can use them, which, you know, for $52, come on, guys. Okay, it's reconstituting pretty quickly. I don't even think I'm gonna have to break out any power tools for this. All right, you know what? I'm going to take it back. That was not bad at all. So I don't know if this one maybe sat for a while or what, but that all went back together pretty quickly. And I didn't need to break out the immersion blender, so Coyote, I'll give you a pass on this one. I had a brainwave recently about this whole pouring glazes business, which has been, I think we all know, pretty messy. I remembered that I have these guys. So I have this one, which I got, I don't even know where. It says poison on it, which is entertaining and not inaccurate. So instead of trying to pour it and hoping I don't make a mess, I'm going to use this guy. Now, I still have to pour it out, of course, but okay. And then we're gonna pour in this one. Now you can tell the Coyote glaze is drying faster than some of the other glazes you've seen me pour, and that is because they have specifically formulated their glazes to work. They kind of go the middle of the road, so it dries a little slower than a dipping glaze you would mix yourself, but faster than the Amico or the Mako glazes. Let's review what we are putting in the kiln with Frosted Topaz on it. First, we have our new ceramics bowl, the new ceramics clay, which is a buff clay, and I poured Power Turquoise on the inside. It's a dipping glaze, but I just poured it. And then I did 2 times Topaz on the outside and then along the rim. My original intention was to glaze the bottom of this and fire it upside down, but 2 things. One, the rim looked really messy because it is a pinch pot, so it's not a nice, even rim. And then the other thing was that I'm afraid that this combo might run, so better to keep it on the inside of the bowl where if it runs, it'll stay inside. Then we have our wide bowl. We poured the frosted topaz on the inside and I brushed it 2 times on the outside. Then the vase, which needs a little tidying with what's it called? Sponge. Yeah. The vase, we poured the topaz inside and then I put 3 coats of it on the outside. I'm not gonna lie, this feels like a lot of glaze for a small piece. I would not be surprised to find out that this runs. So what I might do in the kiln is take a little ball of wadding and sit this on the wadding on top of the cookie so that at least if it runs, it'll just drip off and it won't like stick the cookie to the vase, hopefully. We'll see. Then on this cute little pinch pot, we poured topaz inside and brushed 2 times on the outside. So everything has 2 times except for that vase and obviously the stuff that's poured. So that should give us a good understanding of how thickly this glaze likes to be applied. We have our heart-shaped bowl and we dipped that in the amethyst. I didn't check the specific gravity of it, but I'll be able to tell you if it's dialed in based on the results. And then put 2 times topaz around the rim. 2 times frosted topaz around the rim. Okay, we have round 1 of the results for frosted topaz out of the kiln. If you watched my most recent kiln unloading, you have actually already seen these, but we're going to take a closer look today. And I am going to go off screen and do a few more tests. So stay tuned after this because there will be another section of results. There's just a few more things I want to try with this glaze. The results went into a kiln that fired to a cone 6 and it got to a hot cone 6. So a regular proper cone 6 would come level with this line here, this little V shape. It went past that, so it was a hot cone 6. And I did a slow cool program on it. Before I dive into the reviews, now's a great time to hit the like and the subscribe button and to make sure that you're set up to get notifications from my channel. That's the little alarm bell. And I say that because next week's glaze review is a doozy and you do not want to miss it. It was a roller coaster ride. So make sure that you've got all that set up so that YouTube will let you know when that one is posted. First of all, our little bowl, ring bowl, chicken bowl, I call them the everything dish. Now this is very pretty. I have no issues with this at all. I would be happy to sell it. This is a very kind of relaxing, soft blue color. I think it'll sell well. It has some pretty variation around the edge of it. There's nothing wrong with this at all, except that I am wondering what this might have looked like with a natural cool. Because there's so many crystals here that it's just kind of all matte. Whereas on the side, you can kind of see what happens when it's a little glossy and a little matte. And this would be the vertical surface and a little heavier application at the rim because it always just overlaps on the rim. So I am going to try some pieces and put them in on a natural cool and see what happens. But lovely result. This was a little porcelain bowl with a tiny bit of mason stain accidentally in it. And this is stoneware. And the 2 results are very, very close. It's actually brighter on the stoneware, which is interesting, but we did more coats on the stoneware. So I'm guessing that is the difference. This got quite thick, a little gloopy at the bottom, but it did not run. So definite point for the Frosted Topaz. Good work, especially at a hot cone 6. There's lots of variation in this surface. It does kind of look like a gemstone, but again, it is all matte. I'm not sure that this one really needs 3 coats. It might be okay with 2, but 3 coats certainly didn't hurt it any. So in person, and I'm going to say this because sometimes the colors in the camera, despite my best efforts, don't really look true to life. That's especially true depending on what device you're watching on and what the color calibration of that device is and so on. So what I'm seeing here in person is a lovely light blue, kind of a robin's egg blue, with speckles of kind of a reddish brown throughout. And it's a very matte surface, which again, I suspect is down to that slow cool, and it's basically just created microcrystals all over the surface. And every once in a while, there's a little bit of a darker version of that blue coming through. Same color, just a darker tone. Here's our last test tile with just the Frosted Topaz on it. And I apologize, I've sanded these and not wiped them off properly. Interesting how much the red clay showed through here. So you do get a very different result. It looks more rustic. Especially, it almost looks like a Chino glaze, like a blue Chino glaze. And I would say the colors that we're getting on these 2 glazes are very similar, or on these 2 clays, sorry. I would say the colors we're getting on these 2 clays are very similar, but I'm being thrown off a little bit because the underlying clay is showing through just a little bit. I personally prefer this, but I mean, that's only personal preference. This is lovely. And then we have one of our layering examples. And the Frosted Topaz did add something interesting here. It's quite lovely. And you can see those little bits of that robin's egg blue kind of floating up in certain places. Honestly, glazed, this little bowl looks so much better than it did when it was bisqued. It is still a little heftier than I would like, but I'm almost regretting not putting a stamp on this because I could for sure sell this. And thank you to Sarah for her tutorial on how to make these. That was fun. Okay, I have saved the best for last. So this last example of layering, you'll remember Laguna Turquoise, Laguna Power Turquoise, and Frosted Topaz on the buff colored New Ceramics clay. So the outside was just Frosted Topaz, and you can see that, sorry, again, I really should have wiped these better. You can see that it's the same color, so this is quite a consistent glaze across all of the different clays that we've used it on. Not showing the texture as much as it did with the red clay, which I think just comes down to the color of the clay because this is buff. It's not so obvious. But this is the showstopper here. This is, and I'm not overstating this, stunning. Again, you know, look, it's personal preference, it's personal aesthetics, whatever, but there's a lot going on here. This is a very dynamic combo. You can see that Power Turquoise in there, but it's almost changed so much that it looks like a different glaze, which is kind of what you want from your layering options, right? You don't necessarily want it to look like Laguna Power Turquoise with Frosted Topaz over top. You want it to really kind of meld and make something new altogether. Or at least I do. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Anyway, this has done that spectacularly. So if you're looking for an interesting combo and you're willing to pay $53 for a pint of glaze, Frosted Topaz over Laguna Power Turquoise is a stunner for sure. As they used to say on baking shows, through the magic of television, we have the second set of results for Topaz. So as a reminder, I did these on a Cone 6 fast program and with no slow cool at all. As expected, we're seeing in the fast cool version less of the crystals. So still the same color, but just less crystallization so that you can see a little bit more of the variation in the glaze. I did a second tester just to compare. This one actually does look like it's a lighter color than this guy, which is interesting. And what do we have here? So this is stoneware and this is porcelain. So stoneware, porcelain, porcelain, stoneware. So you can see the difference that the clay makes as well, because obviously it's much kind of brighter and greener on the porcelain. Ignore these. These were bits of kiln wash that fell in when I was loading the kiln, and I thought I got them out and I didn't, which is a shame because this is a beautiful dish. And I think of all of them, I think I might prefer this one the most. This also would have been fired a little bit cooler. So I did put a cone in and it got to a perfect cone 6, but this was on the bottom shelf. So in the little baby kiln, I put one shelf in and this was on the bottom. And from past experience, I can confidently say that this would have been a cool cone 6, maybe even a cone 5. So that could be coming into play here as well, where we see even less crystals than on this guy. So there you have it, the results of our test of Coyote's Frosted Topaz, the most expensive glaze I have ever bought. To a certain extent, glazes are in the eye of the beholder. So from a technical standpoint, this glaze performed really well. It worked on the porcelain, on the stoneware, on the red clay, on the buff clay. There were no pinholes, no blisters, no crawling, nothing. So from a technical standpoint, Frosted Topaz was a winner. Now you might be able to hear some pinging. Some of these pieces are pinging a little bit. I know some people are super against crazing. Anyway, so just to let you know, some of these are pinging. I don't know which ones. But that is really something that you will have to assess on your own clay body because crazing is different on every clay body. In terms of the aesthetics of it, I really like the glaze. It's very pretty. Would I spend $52 on it again? Probably not. But, that's the part where it's really just up to you and what you like and what you think is worth it. And, everybody's going to have to make their own decision on that one. And also, it's important to remember that I'm in Canada, and this is the pricing up here in Canada. So if you're in the United States or somewhere else in the world, the comparative cost of this glaze to other glazes might be quite different. So if this glaze was 30 bucks, 35 bucks. Absolutely. It's a lovely glaze. In some ways, it reminds me of Spectrum's Floating Turquoise. The base color of it is quite similar. Actually, maybe I'm going to grab a Frosted Turquoise or Floating Turquoise pot for you and we'll compare it. Why not? So I brought this out to compare. This is the Floating Turquoise glaze that I did a review of a while back. And I mean, it's not the same. It's not the same, obviously. These are two different things. But in terms of the color, very, very similar. This is $17 a bottle here. This is $52 a bottle. Floating Turquoise will not do this. It will not give you these little microcrystals. That's not a thing that it does. But in terms of just the base color, it is very, very similar. So when you're shopping, you know, keep that in mind. If it's just this color that you're after, this would be a decent alternative. Like I say, it doesn't do the microcrystals, but I mean, this is beautiful. I have actually just bought a dipping version of the Floating Turquoise, and I am bringing this into my studio practice. So I really like this color, but not at this price tag. And this is, I believe, a porcelain. Yeah, so this is a porcelain bowl. So it really compares most to this. So I'm curious to know, would you buy this glaze? Do you think this is worth $52? I would love to hear your comments and thoughts down below because, like I say, we've all got different opinions, and in terms of aesthetics, it really does just come down to opinion. So let me know down in the comments.